A wooden stick just destroys your head. Not a katana, not a spear, not some legendary forged blade. A wooden stick. Imagine being arguably the most technically skilled swordsman on the entire Japanese server. A player so refined that his signature move, the Swallow's Return, was considered virtually uncountable. And you get one-tapped by a guy who showed up 3 hours late, carved his weapon from a boat oar on the way over, and still won? That's not a skill issue. That's a psychological warfare build. And it was run by one player, Miyamoto Musashi. But before we crown him the GOAT, let's actually rank the strongest samurai builds in history. Because Musashi wasn't the only broken unit on the server. We're grading each samurai across 6 core stats: combat mechanics, strategy IQ, mental fortitude, build diversity, legacy scaling, lore impact. Because on the server, killing someone was the easy part. How you killed them was everything. Miyamoto Musashi, the Dual-Wield build. Let's address the obvious. Musashi is the most famous samurai in the game's history, and his stats back it up. His combat mechanics weren't the most technically pristine on the server. He was not a form purist. He broke almost every established rule in the Kenjutsu meta, but that was the build. Musashi developed a two-sword style that nobody had the proper skills to defend against it. It introduced an offhand weapon most opponents' reaction time couldn't process. On top of that, Musashi was physically massive for the era, around 180 centimeters tall, when the average samurai was closer to 150. He was basically a walking cheat code. To top it all off, he had a crazy IQ and was an absolute troll. The Gon Ryujima fight is the perfect example. He showed up 3 hours late, on purpose. He forced Kojiro to wait, draining his mental stamina before the duel even started. He carved his weapon from a boat oar on the way over, and legend has it, he made it an inch longer than Kojiro's blade, meaning he disrespected his opponent's honor and removed his reach advantage in the same move, while creating a new legendary item that no one thought of. Kojiro's build was technically superior in almost every metric. Musashi just turned the duel into a different game entirely. He also went undefeated across over 60 recorded duels according to his own account in the Book of 5 Rings. That's not variance. That's a top tier PvP build. Musashi earns S tier. Now let's give Kojiro the respect he's owed. Because the way history tells it, Kojiro was just the guy who lost. That framing is disrespectful. Kojiro was known as the demon of the Western provinces. Before the Musashi duel, he had built a reputation so fearsome that the Hosokawa clan made him their chief weapons master. His signature technique, the turning swallow cut, was modeled on the motion of a swallow's tail in flight. A high-speed, direction-changing strike considered virtually impossible to counter by the standards of time. He wielded a blade over 90 centimeters long when the standard katana was around 70. He had mastered the range advantage it gave him to a degree no one else on the server had matched. His form was perfect. His reputation was elite. He had never lost. But his build had one critical weakness: mental fortitude. When Musashi strolled in 3 hours late with the wooden oar, Kojiro was already tilted. He drew his sword and threw his scabbard away, a dramatic gesture meant to signal commitment. Musashi read it instantly. "If you have no more use for your sheath," Musashi reportedly replied, "you were already dead." Kojiro's entire build required him to be the composed, dominant presence in the room. That moment that composure broke, his combat mechanics didn't matter. High A tier. Arguably the most technically gifted duelist on the server. Undone by a critical mental stat gap Musashi exploited perfectly. Honda Tadakatsu, the unkillable tank. If Musashi was the DPS carry and Kojiro was the precision striker, Honda Tadakatsu was the tank build. Honda Tadakatsu fought in over 50 recorded military campaigns. He never received a single serious wound, not once. In an era of pure melee combat, arrows, spears, matchlock fire, blades from every direction, that stat line is incomprehensible. His defense rating is the highest on the server. He wielded one of Japan's 3 great spears, The legend goes that its edge was so sharp, a dragonfly that landed on the tip was sliced clean in two without the spear even moving. Even Oda Nobunaga, who did not hand out compliments, called him a samurai among samurai and the best of the Tokugawa clan. After one battle, Nobunaga compared him to Zhang Fei, the legendary Chinese warrior general, essentially Japan's version of a generational talent nickname. His weakness? He wasn't a dueling specialist. His build was optimized for the battlefield, large-scale combat, formation warfare, sustained pressure campaigns. In a ranked 1 versus 1 environment, his numbers dropped slightly, but in a PvE setting, S tier. Speaking of legendary craftsmanship, quick pause to shout out today's sponsor, Elf Caps. If you care about the details on your desk the way these samurai cared about the details on their armor, you're gonna wanna hear this. Elf Caps makes handcrafted resin keycaps, and they just dropped a full samurai themed set that honestly looks like it belongs in a museum more than on a keyboard. We're talking tiny hand-poured pieces with actual depth to them, armor plating, katana details, the kind of craftsmanship that takes real time to make. Every keycap is compatible with standard mechanical switches, so you can slot them straight into whatever board you're already running. And honestly, if this video made you want to channel a little bit of that samurai energy into your setup, this is probably the cleanest way to do it. The link is in the description. Check out the samurai collection at Elf Caps and use code HISTORY at checkout for 15% off your order. Now back to the samurai builds. Yasuke, the import build. Now let's talk about the most unexpected player on the server, Yasuke. He was an African warrior who arrived in Japan in 1579, originally serving as a bodyguard to an Italian missionary. 2 years later, he was introduced to Oda Nobunaga, the most powerful warlord in Japan. And Nobunaga, who had seen basically everything at this point, was so fascinated by Yasuke that he recruited him directly. Yasuke was given a sword, a house, a stipend, and a rank contemporaries interpreted as samurai status. He is the first recorded foreign-born samurai in Japanese history. His stat sheet was unusual for the server. He was over 6 feet tall, a giant by 16th century Japanese standards. The Chronicle of Lord Nobunaga described his strength as surpassing 10 men. He spoke Japanese well enough that Nobunaga reportedly had private dinners with him, an incredibly rare honor. And he didn't just decorate the court. He was present at the Honnoji incident in 1582, when Nobunaga was betrayed by Akechi Mitsuhide. Yasuke fought through the attack, continued fighting alongside Nobunaga's son at Nijo Castle, and only surrendered after being overwhelmed. He is possibly the most unique character on the entire samurai server, but his legacy scaling stat is limited. After 1582, he disappears from the historical record entirely. B+ tier. Tomoe Gozen, the wildcard build. Most tier lists leave her out entirely. That's a mistake. Tomoe Gozen is the most celebrated female samurai in Japanese literary tradition. And while historians note her existence is partially disputed, the tale of the High Key gives her one of the most memorable combat reputations in all of Japanese history. Her stat spread is genuinely unusual. She stacked mobility, combat mechanics, and lore impact simultaneously, a combination almost no other player on the server achieved. The High Key describes her as a remarkably strong archer, and a swordswoman worth 1,000 warriors, fit to face either a demon or a god, mounted or on foot. She served as a senior commander during the Genpei War in the late 12th century. At the Battle of Iwazu in 1184, with Yoshinaka's army overwhelmed and only a handful of fighters left, she reportedly rode straight at an enemy commander, pulled him from his horse, and took his head, then vanished from the battlefield. What happened to her after that is uncertain, which honestly just adds to the mystique stat. A tier. Potentially higher, but the server admins of that era simply weren't logging matches well enough to prove it. Hattori Hanzō, the shadow build. Most samurai builds focus on frontal combat. Hattori Hanzō ran something different. Hattori was a high-ranking samurai trained in conventional samurai arts. Swordsmanship, spearwork, horseback combat, but also skilled in what we now call unconventional warfare, night raids, guerrilla tactics, terrain exploitation. Because of his connections to Iga province, he had access to shinobi networks that most daimyo couldn't touch. He was so effective that he earned the nickname Demon Hanzō. His most important contribution came in 1582, right after Oda Nobunaga's assassination. Tokugawa Ieyasu was stranded in an enemy territory near Osaka with a tiny retinue, being hunted by Akechi Mitsuhide's forces. Getting caught meant Ieyasu dies. Ieyasu dying means no Tokugawa shogunate. No Tokugawa shogunate means the next 250 years in Japanese history looks completely different. Hanzō guided Ieyasu through the mountain passes of Iga, bandit territory, dangerous terrain, a route full of samurai hunters, and got him home alive. That single run is arguably one of the most consequential moments in Japanese history. He also commanded infantry in open battles like Onigawa and Mikatagahara. He wasn't just a stealth specialist, he was a complete warrior who happened to also run a shadow kit, A tier. Lower raw mechanics than the top duelist, but his strategy IQ and legacy scaling stats are off the charts. Benkei, the loyalty tank. And finally, we have to talk about the most legendary death scene in Japanese history, Sayoto Musashibo Benkei. Before he became a samurai, Benkei was a warrior monk and he was built differently from everyone else on the server, literally. By the time he was 17, he was reportedly around 2 meters tall, nearly 6'7". In a country where the average man was 150 centimeters, this was a balance-breaking stat line. His origin story is pure folklore energy. He allegedly stationed himself at Gojo Bridge in Kyoto and challenged every samurai who crossed, aiming to collect 1,000 swords from duels he won. He got to 999. Then he challenged a small, unassuming man with a flute. That young man was Minamoto no Yoshitsune, one of the greatest warrior strategists in Japanese history. Yoshitsune beat him, and instead of holding a grudge, Benkei swore absolute loyalty on the spot and became Yoshitsune's most devoted retainer. They fought side by side through the Genpei War, the same war Tomoe Gozen fought in, including at Danoyura, the naval battle that ended the Taira clan and reshaped Japan. But the reason we're talking about him today is how he died. Yoshitsune had fallen out of favor with his own brother, the shogun, and was hunted down to a final standoff. With enemy forces closing in, Yoshitsune retired inside to commit seppuku, with honor. He needed time. Benkei gave it to him. Benkei took position on the bridge leading to the main gate, alone, against hundreds. Legend states he personally killed over 300 trained soldiers before the enemy realized close combat wasn't gonna work. So they switched to arrows and kept firing and firing and firing. Eventually his body was so riddled with shafts he looked like a porcupine. But he didn't fall. Long after the battle should have ended, the enemy soldiers noticed something unsettling. Benkei was still standing on the bridge, motionless, silent. When they finally worked up the courage to approach him, they realized his HP was at 0 and he had already been dead for some time. He had died standing up, still guarding the bridge, still protecting his lord. This is known as Benkei's standing death. It's so iconic in Japanese culture that the phrase is still used today, 800 years later, to describe being stuck in an impossible situation. S tier. There is no other build quite like him. The definition of a loyalty tank. The samurai server was full of high-level players, but the thing that separated the top tier wasn't just combat mechanics, but also intelligence. The strongest samurai wasn't always the one with the highest power stat. It was the one who understood which game they were actually playing. And one last thing before you go, big thanks again to ElfCaps for sponsoring this video. If you want to bring some of that samurai craftsmanship onto your desk, check out their samurai collection in the description and use code HISTORY for 15% off. See you on the next server.